Hey guys, tonight we walk the marbled paths of myth and loom into the realm where pride weaves disaster and silk threads whisper the names of forgotten mortals. Imagine golden sunlight dripping through olive trees, landing on pale stone courtyards that haven't echoed with footsteps in centuries. The air smells like warm clay, figs, and a little bit of divine tension. You're about to meet a girl who dared to outweave a goddess, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this competition either. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your city and local time. Let's see who's still awake across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thread of this tale begins not in a thunderous clash of gods, but with the sound of a loom. You walk softly into a stone courtyard filled with golden light. It's early morning in a town so small and sleepy, it barely earns a name. Nestled in the folds of Lydia, a region kissed by the slow rivers and slower gossip. The cicadas are louder than the people here. You might mistake it all for peaceful, but listen closely. Beneath the buzz and hush, there's tension spun tighter than warp and weft. At the center of this courtyard sits a loom so finely carved it could be mistaken for sculpture. And seated before it, back straight, brow furrowed, is a girl not more than 17. Her fingers flick like dragonfly wings across the shuttle. You watch silently as the cloth grows beneath her hands. More than cloth, really. This is storytelling with silk. Mountains roll across the linen. Gods weep in rage. Horses gallop. Lovers kiss, all in threads so delicate the breeze itself seems afraid to breathe too hard. Her name is Arachne, and she doesn't even glance your way. Not because she's rude, but because she's in that hypnotic space of creation where nothing else exists. You've probably been there too, maybe while sketching, maybe while coding, maybe while doom scrolling at 3 a.m. But this is different. Arachne isn't trying to escape the world. She's bending it to her will, one stitch at a time. Her tapestries hang around her like ghosts. One shows the birth of Aphrodite, sea foam turning into flesh. Another captures Zeus as a swan, mid-transformation. Wings exploding from human shoulders. It's unsettling, too vivid, too bold. You hear someone whisper behind you. A group of women from the town have gathered at the low wall. She learned from Athena herself, one says. No mortal could weave like that. She says she didn't, another corrects. She says she taught herself. Gasps, raised eyebrows, a dropped fig. That second woman lowers her voice. She said, now she glances around, that Athena could learn a thing or two from her. Now we all know Greek gods aren't the forgiving type. They don't take insults well. They barely take compliments well. So you feel a little twist in your gut, like something sacred just cracked. The kind of crack that doesn't make noise until the thunder comes later. Still, Arachne weaves. Word spreads. Fast, like faster than Amazon Prime fast. In 2 days, travelers are arriving from neighboring towns just to see her work. They line up along the wall. No one talks directly to her. They just stand there stunned and maybe a little afraid, because who else dares to portray the gods with this kind of brutal honesty? She weaves Zeus again, this time chasing a terrified maiden. The thread glows like a secret no one wants to admit they know. She doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, just keeps weaving. Eventually, an old woman appears at the edge of the courtyard. Her back is bent, but her presence is sharp, like someone you wouldn't want to owe money to. She steps inside without asking, without waiting. The others part around her like spilled wine. She speaks softly, but somehow you hear it anyway. Child, you tempt the wrath of gods. Arachne doesn't pause. My hands are my own. The old woman's eyes narrow. No mortal is above divine favor. My gift is skill, Arachne says, not favor. I owe the gods nothing. Now there it is again, that crack. The old woman straightens. Her voice deepens, not just in tone, but in truth. The way thunder deepens, the way mountains might speak if they got chatty. Then you accept the challenge, she asks. Arachne finally looks up. Her face is calm, serene even. I do. And with that, the crone's form melts. Robes ripple like water. wrinkles vanish like steam, and before you stands Athena, goddess of wisdom, war, and apparently textile smackdowns. You expected lightning. You expected her to strike Arachne down with a spear or summon owls to peck out her eyes. Instead, she calls for a second loom. It appears, as things often do in myths, instantly and without explanation. A twin to Arachne's, carved of laurel and gold. They begin, side by side. Silence falls, not a respectful silence. A trembling, knees-knocking kind of silence. Athena weaves first. Her tapestry is a glorious, glowing tribute to Olympus. The gods at their best, Poseidon taming horses, Artemis unleashing the hunt. Athena herself, radiant, besting mortals in contests of skill. Everything is framed in olive branches in order. It's divine, perfect, a PR dream. Then Arachne begins. And oh boy, she weaves the same gods, but not their highlights. She shows them tricking mortals, seducing women under false identities, punishing humans for petty offenses. The stories you don't tell in temples. Her hands blur across the thread like wind through wheat. She doesn't just create images, she resurrects emotion. By the time she's done, even the spiders in the rafters are holding their breath. You look between the two tapestries. Athena's is beautiful, but Arachne's is true. And that's the problem. Athena doesn't say a word, just reaches forward and rips Arachne's tapestry in half. The sound it makes? It's not just tearing, it's undoing. Like memory unraveling. Like justice bleeding. Arachne flinches. Not from fear, from grief. And then, slowly, she walks to a tree at the edge of the courtyard, ties a thread from her loom to a branch, loops it around her own neck. You can't move, can't stop it. But Athena does. With a gesture, not of cruelty, but of complicated mercy, she turns Arachne's body soft and small. Her limbs split and multiply. Her skin shifts, darkens, hardens. The noose becomes a thread. Her fingers become legs. Her voice becomes silence. Arachne the girl's gone. Arachne the spider remains. And for the first time, she truly weaves without limits. The sun has slipped lower now, casting bronze light across the courtyard where silence has taken root. You look around and the people are gone, just like that, as if they were never more than breath and shadow. But you still hear the gentle rustle of thread. Or is it legs? 8 of them, nimble and tireless, dancing across the branches above your head. You step closer and spot her, small, dark, almost invisible against the bark, yet unmistakably present. Arachne. She's no longer a girl, no longer human, but the soul remains, and it is weaving. From the limb dangles a perfect circle, a web so fine the fading light trembles through it like water over glass. You watch in stillness as she tests each strand, pauses, re-anchors, balances. Her movements are precise, ancient, and eerily graceful. This isn't just a spider doing spider things. This is craftsmanship, and vengeance, and legacy. You hear a flutter above and look up to see another spider, smaller. Its legs twitch uncertainly as it crawls onto the edge of Arachne's web. She doesn't chase it away. Instead, she retreats to the side and lets the newcomer try a few loops. There's mentorship in that movement, or maybe just instinct. Either way, the story doesn't end with her. That's the problem with punishments meant to be permanent. They tend to evolve. The tale of Arachne was supposed to be a warning. Hubris, they said. Know your place, they whispered. Don't challenge the gods. But something strange happened in the retelling. People didn't just fear her, they admired her. Her art, her defiance, her refusal to bend a knee to power she didn't respect. It's the kind of tale that keeps creeping back, like vines or old debts. And soon, Arachne's story spins across more than just webs. Take the myths, for example. You're in the agora now, the marketplace of myths, where storytellers hawk legends like ripe pomegranates. One bard swears Arachne was reborn as every spider to ever live. Another insists her soul still weaves the night sky, stringing stars together in defiance of Athena. Each constellation, he says, is a stitch in her rebellion. You nod politely, but then someone else whispers, Arachne was never real. You pause. Just a tale to scare girls into modesty, they say, shrugging. To keep their heads down and their fingers busy. You're not sure you believe that? You saw her weave, felt the heat of her pride, Myth or mortal, that girl existed in the tension of every thread. Historians still argue, by the way, whether Arachne was an allegory for the role of women in ancient society or a poetic way to explain spider behavior. Some say it's just a cautionary tale wrapped in divine flair. Others argue she represents the eternal artist, doomed to labor in solitude, their genius misunderstood by gods and mortals alike. But as you stand here watching her descendants spin quietly in roof corners and forgotten closets, it's hard not to feel like she's still around. You pass under an arched stone bridge. It's cracked but still standing. Beneath it, tiny threads shimmer in the shadows. A whole colony of spiders has made a home here, and you notice something strange. They're building their webs in symmetrical spirals, like mini mandalas, beautiful, orderly, sacred almost. You kneel for a closer look. Each thread hums faintly in the wind. You touch one gently. It vibrates, not just from the air, but with memory. There's something stored in there. You can't explain it, like a song barely remembered, a pattern half familiar. You feel as if you just watch long enough, the web might start telling you a story. Maybe that's what Arachne intended all along. Back in the town square, another tapestry is being unveiled. This one isn't woven from silk, it's frescoed onto plaster, painted in ochre and cobalt. Arachne again, mid-transformation, her face half human, half spider. It's not monstrous, it's regal, majestic even. A new crowd is gathered, young girls among them, pointing and whispering. She dared, one says. She paid, another mutters. You want to tell them those two things aren't mutually exclusive. A teacher calls them back to class, but as they go, you notice one of the girls glance up toward the roofline, where a web glitters in the sun. She smiles. It's little things like this that keep stories alive. Now let's step back a little further. You're in a temple now. Marble columns soar like petrified trees. A statue of Athena towers in the center, her face forever calm, her spear forever raised. But at her feet, a tiny sculpted spider curled quietly in the folds of her robe. You'd almost miss it, but it's there. Some sculptor added it later. Slipped it in without permission, maybe. An act of rebellion or reverence. Hard to tell. Either way, no one removed it. They say the gods don't forget slights, but apparently they don't forget artistry either. Athena's legacy is wisdom, justice, strategy, but also wrath. And in her story with Arachne, that last thread runs deep. Was she threatened, inspired, regretful? No oracle ever confirmed. The gods don't exactly issue press releases, but some say that after Arachne's transformation, Athena visited her again, quietly, without thunder or masks, just a goddess and a spider. She watched her weave, stayed a long while, then left without a word. Some versions of the myth say that was forgiveness. Others say it was defeat. You walk now through olive groves beyond the town, where the trees twist like dancers caught mid-turn. Spiderwebs catch the setting sun between their branches, glowing gold and ghost-like. A single thread drifts toward you. It lands on your arm. You freeze, and then you smile, because you realize that thread, it's not punishment, it's invitation. To create, to question, to diffy, and to remember. You wake slowly, not in your own bed, but in a grove where the air is warm and smells like old bark, crushed herbs, and something faintly sweet, like honey left too long in the sun. Above you leaves shiver in the morning light, and between them stretches a single shimmering web. It's perfect. You sit up carefully, brushing dew from your arms. The grove is still, but there's a tension in the stillness, like a drum skin pulled tight. And then, movement. Not from the branches, but from memory. You remember the story now, the loom, the challenge, the transformation. Arachne, the girl who wouldn't bow, the spider who never stopped weaving. You stand and begin walking through the grove. Threads glint from every corner, thread-thin lines of silk connecting twig to leaf, bark to stone. They look delicate, but you know better now. Each one is strong enough to catch a fly, strong enough to carry a myth across centuries. You push through a veil of webs and emerge into another memory. This time it's a villa, an ancient one, Roman. You can tell by the colonnade and the smug elegance. The mosaic beneath your feet crackles faintly with the image of a goddess, Athena again. But something's different. Her shield isn't blank. It bears the shape of a spider, coiled and proud. This is no warning. This is a tribute. You follow the trail deeper into the villa, passing empty rooms where the wind stirs dust into small tornadoes. And then you see it, on a cracked wall, barely visible, a scratched drawing of a girl with a loom. Next to it, 8 spindly legs. And beside that, a single word in Latin, hastily carved, fortitudo, courage. That's what someone remembered. Not disobedience, not blasphemy, courage. You keep walking, through centuries, because Arachne's story didn't stop with her silk. You find yourself in a medieval library now, where monks shuffle silently under candlelight. Their robes rustle like moth wings. One of them is copying a manuscript. Illuminated borders, golden swirls, the whole ornate deal. And in the margin, a tiny sketch of a spider mid-spin perched on the edge of the parchment. You ask the monk, why is she there? He blinks, startled to be noticed, then shrugs. We all weave, he says. She just never stopped. You move on. Through the centuries, the story spins forward. In Renaissance Florence, you step into the studio of a painter mixing ultramarine. He paints Arachne not as a villain, but as a muse. Draped in shadow, her hair braided like silk thread. Her fingers reaching not for salvation, but for mastery. Behind her, a loom. Above her, 8 legs, ghostly, like an aura. You notice the painter's own eyes are rimmed with red. Has he been crying? No, he's just been awake too long. Obsession does that. In 19th century Paris, you pass a shop window displaying embroidered gowns. A sign reads, Maison d'Arachne. The logo? A web, of course, stylized and chic. The mannequins wear silk stitched, so fine it seems grown rather than sewn. Inside, a seamstress guides her apprentice's hands. Feel, don't think, she murmurs. The thread already knows. You're starting to see the pattern, aren't you? Everywhere Arachne appears, it's never the same way twice. Goddess or girl. Curse or gift. Horror or hero. The web is flexible, elastic, like a story that survives because no one can quite pin it down. And now, you're in a modern classroom. High school, chalk dust in the air. A bored teacher leans against a whiteboard, diagramming Greek myths. Most of the students scroll their phones, but one girl way in the back is sketching in her notebook. Her hoodie sleeves are shredded at the cuffs and her hair is dyed purple. Badly. You peek over her shoulder. She's drawn a spider, but not a scary one. This one's regal. It's got a tiara. 8 legs, sure, but each one holds a needle. It's sewing something massive. A cape? No, a map of the world. Every continent stitched in. You ask her what it means. She shrugs. Power. And now we're in a lab. Bright, cold, stainless steel and glass. Scientists peer through microscopes, studying silk proteins and spider genetics. On one screen, a computer simulation shows synthetic webbing strong enough to catch bullets. Literally, they're trying to replicate what evolution perfected millions of years ago. One of the researchers, a tired-looking woman with ink-stained gloves, glances at the screen and mutters, Arachne knew what she was doing. You walk on, into darker places. An old prison cell, a forgotten attic, a hidden diary written by candlelight. Again and again, Arachne appears, not as a monster, but as a metaphor for survival, for creativity, for the unstoppable nature of truth, even when it's inconvenient, especially then. You pass a therapist's office. On the desk sits a notebook open to a single doodle, a spiral. The patient, a girl struggling with expectations, family, culture, her own worth. She says she feels like she's spinning and no one sees her. The therapist circles the spiral. Maybe spinning is still movement, she says. Maybe it's a different kind of progress. And what about Athena? Where is she in all this? You find her too, eventually, in a museum, standing behind velvet rope, carved from white marble. Her eyes are blank, her mouth serene. The label beneath her reads, Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. But someone stuck a sticker to the base. Just a simple cartoon spider. You laugh quietly, no one notices. Athena's silence is legend. She's the goddess who sees all sides, who wages wars with words and wisdom, not just weapons. You can't help but wonder, does she regret it? The punishment, the pride, or maybe, like the rest of us, she's still figuring it out. Now you return to that first courtyard. Time has passed, seasons have folded over it like old blankets. The loom is gone, but the tree still stands. Beneath it, you spot a glimmer of silk, a web, fresh, glowing with dew. You kneel beside it. The strands pulse faintly in the morning light. You place your hand gently beside it, not to destroy, just to honor. And as you do, a spider drops down slowly beside your fingers, small, steady, watching. You don't flinch, you nod. Because you know now this isn't a horror story, it's a legacy. One woven from defiance and thread, from artistry and punishment, from myth and memory. You stand, the sun rises behind you. And behind the clouds, behind the moss, behind the centuries, Arachne still spins. You're walking again. The path beneath your feet is soft and earthy, but with each step it shifts, not with sand or gravel, but with time. Stories ripple beneath your soles, old and newer, entangled like roots. You're not entirely sure where you are now. A library? A dream? Maybe both. What matters is that the web has followed you. It threads the edges of your vision, winding through ceiling beams, across tree branches, between memory and myth. And no matter how far you walk, you keep finding fragments of her. Arachne, not just the girl who became a spider, but the idea of her, the echo, the unresolved question, the tension that still trembles in the fabric of things. You pass a fresco cracked with age. Arachne mid-shift, caught between human grief and spider grace. Her mouth is open, not in scream or cry, but in challenge. Even now, mid-transformation, her eyes say, "Look what I made." That's the part people forget. This was never just about punishment. It was about art and power. And who gets to tell the story? You sit on a low stone wall beneath a fig tree. The leaves shade you from the midday glare, and the fruit smells overripe and heady. Bees hum lazily nearby. You watch one drift too close to a web and get gently, efficiently caught. The spider doesn't pounce. It waits. It listens. Then, as if performing a practiced waltz, it glides down and wraps the bee in silk so fine it gleams like glass. You feel a flicker of something unsettling, beauty in the trap, precision in the violence. And that's when you start to understand what makes the Arachne myth different. Most Greek myths are big on endings. Oedipus blinds himself, Icarus falls, Narcissus drowns in his own reflection. The message is clear: mess with fate, and fate will swat you like a bug. But Arachne, she doesn't end. She continues. Every spider web you've ever walked into, every thread glinting in the morning light, that's her signature. Her story doesn't stop at punishment. It mutates, survives, reinvents, just like her. And just like that, you're in a university lecture hall now. The professor is pacing in front of a whiteboard, diagrams half erased and red marker squiggles tangled like vines. Here's the thing about Arachne, she says, and why she still matters. Her story was a threat, but threats don't last forever. They rot, they evolve, and the rot is interesting. The students scribble notes. One is doodling, guess what? A spider with 8 ballet slippers. You see, the professor continues, what's brilliant is how this myth refused to behave. You can try to use it to shame someone, but you also risk inspiring them. She taps the board. That's the trap. The gods tried to bury her, but all they did was give her more material to work with. You smile to yourself. If Arachne had a motto, it would probably be that. Weave with what you're given, even if it's a curse. Now you're in a dusty attic, the kind that smells like forgotten winters and mothballs. Boxes piled to the ceiling, old quilts, one cracked mirror. You hear something, soft, rhythmic, faint as breath. Then you see it, a web, not just any web. This one stretches across the entire corner of the room, suspended between an old wooden beam and a broken chair. And at its center, a single spider. She's small, but her web, it's enormous. It spells out nothing, depicts nothing, but somehow you feel it. The rhythm, the calm fury, the defiant grace. You sit and just watch. And in the watching, something changes. You start to think about all the other Arachne figures that have come and gone through history. The women who painted what they weren't supposed to paint. The ones who danced the wrong dances, sang the band songs, wrote the stories that made priests nervous. And the ones who made lace so intricate it felt like a prayer, even if no one dared to call it art. They were all weaving, even when they were burning. And the gods? They're quieter now. Because here's the truth. The web outlasts the thunder. You leave the attic, but the web stays with you. It clings to your clothes, your fingers, your thoughts. You're outside now, somewhere new, somewhere ancient and brand new at once. A field of wildflowers stretches around you, buzzing with bees and whispering with wind. In the center, a stone tower half sunk into the earth. You step inside. Spiral stairs lead up to a high, dusty room with wide windows and no roof. There's a loom in the corner, old, silent. You approach and run your hand along it. The wood is splintered but warm. You pick up the shuttle, lift the thread. It feels heavier than you expect, like it remembers everything. And you sit, and you begin. Not because you think you can rival the gods, but because sometimes the only thing more powerful than worship is witness. You weave, not with perfection, but with intention. Your pattern isn't divine, it's human, messy, frayed at the edges, but it says something. It says, I saw. It says, I remember. And quietly it says, I choose to spin anyway. Far below, a spider crawls from the base of the tower, up the ivy, into the window. She watches for a moment. Then she starts to spin too. Together, you fill the space with thread, with memory, with resistance. Because gods might thunder and mortals might kneel, but somewhere in a quiet corner of the world, Arachne still weaves. And now, so do you. The tower fades behind you like a dream melting with morning. But the threads remain, clinging to your sleeve, your thoughts, the back of your neck, where you keep brushing them off even though there's nothing there. Or maybe there is. Maybe it's the weight of a myth that refused to vanish. You step back onto a path of worn stone, winding now through somewhere older, somewhere deeper. You're underground, not in a dungeon or a cave, but in a place of keeping, an archive of echoes. The Hall of Forgotten Weavers. There are no doors here, just passageways of silken shadow. Each room you pass hums with tension, the kind of energy that gathers when stories are left untold too long. You turn into the first chamber and freeze. Tapestries line the walls, massive, dimly lit, and quietly alive. Not in the haunted sense, more like they're breathing, listening, waiting. These aren't just pretty pictures, they're records. The first one you approach is jagged at the edges, stitched with fiery oranges and defiant reds. It shows a woman burned at the stake, her mouth open mid-song, while behind her a hidden spider escapes beneath the flames. No label, no date, just a memory stitched without permission. Another shows a seamstress in a 19th century sweatshop, fingers bleeding, her cloth filled with tiny hidden messages. Help, hope, heresy. You run your hand along the edge of the tapestry and feel something move inside the fibers. Not a spider, a pulse. You realize this isn't just a gallery. It's a web, not spun with silk, but with resistance. Each piece here was made by someone who wasn't supposed to make it. Women, outsiders, the uninvited. And threaded through them all, a signature. Small, subtle, 8 legs, a nod. You smile. In the next room, a candle flickers beneath a tapestry of Arachne herself. Not just mid-transformation, but after. Fully spider, her eyes sharp, her legs long and lithe. But she's not creeping in the shadows. She's center stage. Loom beside her, web around her, audience silent, waiting. You watch her spin a story not of gods, but of people. Real ones, a mother folding laundry, a girl drawing on the backs of receipts, a worker wrapping loaves in paper at dawn. The thread weaves through their hands, invisible, unbreakable. Suddenly you understand what the gods feared. It wasn't arrogance, it was amplification. Arachne didn't just challenge a goddess, she became a conduit for every silenced artist, every unseen laborer, every soft voice that spoke the truth too clearly. She didn't steal power, she multiplied it. You walk deeper, into a chamber where the walls aren't walls at all, but layers and layers of web. So fine you can barely see them, yet when you touch one, it sings. A soft, vibrating tone like a harp strummed by breath. You stand very still. Listen. The threads are singing stories All of them, at once. Woven into the strands are lullabies, protests, poems, blueprints, love letters, courtroom confessions, forgotten verses, all stitched into one great pulsing memory. It's overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. You understand now why Athena tore the first tapestry, not because it was false, but because it was true. And truth, when woven too boldly, can unravel everything. You retreat from the chamber slowly, your mind buzzing. Outside, the sun is set. The world is ink blue. You're in a marketplace again, but it's not ancient now, it's modern. Cafes, neon signs, scooter engines purring. But above every doorway, spiders. In signs, in logos, in jewelry. No one seems afraid of them. They've become emblems. Quiet nods to something deeper. You pass a tattoo shop. In the window, a sketchbook lies open to a fresh design. A spider perched on a spool of thread, its legs curling into cursive. The caption reads, "Spin your truth." A teenager walks out, rubbing their shoulder, beaming. You want to tell them you're part of it now. The web accepts all kinds. You keep walking. Into a bookstore where a shelf of myth retellings glows under soft lighting. One cover catches your eye, Arachne, drawn not as a monster, but as a queen. Her body half human, half spider. Her loom replaced with a laptop. Her threads now light in code. You flip it open. The first line reads, "They told me I was too proud. I told them I was just getting started." You buy it without hesitation. Outside, it started to rain. Not hard, just enough to gloss the streets and turn every web into a necklace of diamonds. You look up. There, stretched between two lampposts, is a massive orb web. And sitting dead center, almost invisible, is a spider the size of your thumbnail. She doesn't flinch as the wind rattles the threads. She waits. You wonder, what's she spinning? A trap, a cradle, a signal? Or maybe, just maybe, she's not spinning for survival. She's spinning to be seen. You find a bench and sit. The city hums around you. You open the book again, fingers tracing the first few pages. And there she is again, Arachne, everywhere you look. Not defeated, not forgotten, but threaded through the world. In poems and protest songs, in graffiti and couture, in every corner where someone dares to craft truth without permission. The gods may have won the battle that day in the courtyard, but the war was always Arachne's, because she knew the secret, creation outlasts control, and even silk spun in silence can choke a throne. You're dreaming again, except this time the dream doesn't feel like fiction. It feels like fabric, like a story stretched, taut between fingers, humming with the electricity of attention. You're floating above the world now, but not as a god or a ghost, as thread, as the story itself. Below you is a pattern, unfolding in real time. Streets, rivers, valleys, oceans, all wrapped in invisible silk, spun not by one spider, but by billions of hands that have dared to make something out of nothing. Every drawing, every protest sign, every secret note passed in class, stitched into this vast, trembling web of meaning. And Arachne? She's not just one spider anymore, she's many. You dip low, gliding toward a small town. There's a girl sitting under a willow tree with a sketch pad on her knees. She's drawing a web, not with precision, but with wonder. Her mother calls her inside and she goes, leaving the pad behind. You hover watching as a real spider drops down from the branch above and lands on the page. That's the transmission. No thunder, no feathers, no divine chariot. Just small gestures, quiet inheritances. You shift again, time moves in spirals here, and now you're in a school hallway plastered with posters. One says, "We stand for the silenced." Another reads, "Tell your truth." But between them, tacked high and barely noticed, is a doodle, a tiny spider wearing glasses, spinning a web that spells out, "Listen." You chuckle softly. Even in a hallway full of noise, the web still whispers. And just like that, you're in a courtroom. Stark lighting, uncomfortable chairs. A woman stands at the front reading a statement. Her voice is steady, even as her hands shake. On the wall behind her is a seal of justice, blindfolded, scales balanced. But you notice something else. A spider has spun a thread made it from the seal down to the podium. Thin, fragile, but it's there. And somehow in that moment it feels stronger than the marble. stronger than the law. Because stories like Arachne's don't just exist in myth. They exist in every time someone tells the truth and gets punished for it. And every time someone tells it anyway. You move again to a fiber arts festival. Yes, those exist. Tents flap in the wind. Booths display intricate quilts, hand-dyed yarn, looms old and new. One display features nothing but spider webs collected from abandoned buildings, mounted behind glass like constellations. A placard reads, "Spiders were the first textile artists. Their studio, the world." Kids press their noses to the glass. You notice one boy point to a particularly elaborate web and whisper, "That one looks angry." And it does. It loops back on itself, spirals suddenly, jerks in strange directions. A spider with feelings, apparently. You smile. You're in a subway station now. Late, mostly empty. A mural spans one wall, graffiti turned gallery. It shows Arachne, but not as a girl, not as a spider, as both. Half of her face calm and mortal, the other half gleaming with chitin and eyes that glint like cut onyx. Around her, a city made of thread. Skyscrapers suspended in silk. Roads curled like embroidery. At the bottom, in black spray paint, she spins on. People pass it daily. Most barely glance. But one woman stops, looks, takes a picture, posts it with the caption, "Guess who I'm naming my daughter after?" It's always like that. The web doesn't demand attention. It just waits for it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You move through space faster now, a patchwork of scenes. A young poet at an open mic night, their voice trembling as they recite a piece about being underestimated, and the spider they kept in a jar as a child, the only creature that ever listened. A video essayist online comparing Arachne to whistleblowers, to punk artists, to anonymous hackers who stitch truth through code and risk everything for it. A baker piping icing onto a cake shaped like a spiderweb. It's for her daughter's 8th birthday. The theme? Spider Queens. A grandmother teaching her granddaughter to crochet, starting with a pattern she calls the Athena spiral. But when the girl gets it wrong and makes a mess, the grandmother laughs and says, "No, wait, that one's Arachne's loop. Leave it, it's better." Thread by thread, the story continues. And not always gently. Sometimes it bites. There are protests too, murals painted over in the night, books about Arachne quietly removed from school shelves for being too angry. You watch a group of teenagers sneak them back into circulation, slipping photocopied chapters between math textbooks. Even rebellion can be woven. Now you're standing in a church, not ancient, but reverent. Candles flicker, stained glass glows, and in one high corner, almost unnoticed, a single spider hangs from the beam. The priest sees it and smiles. "We used to sweep them out," he says. "Now we let them stay. They've been weaving here longer than we've been preaching." And you think maybe that's the real message. Arachne was punished not for lying, but for telling the truth too. Clearly, for refusing to paint the kids in a flattering light, for exposing their chaos instead of their crowns. But she didn't stop. She was transformed, yes, but not destroyed. And now she's everywhere. In code, in thread, in stories passed under desks and stitched into seams and whispered behind closed doors. You step into one last room. This time it's yours. A bedroom, familiar, cozy. A desk scattered with half-finished projects. A stack of books beside the bed. A journal cracked open like a question waiting to be answered. And in the corner, a web. You stare at it for a long time. Not because it's scary, because it's yours. Your truth, your story, waiting to be spun. And somewhere out there, 8 legs twitch in approval. The morning light leaks through the curtains now, soft, amber. The kind of light that doesn't wake you, but coaxes you into remembering. You're back in your room, but you don't stretch or yawn just yet. There's a thread tied around your wrist. Not literal, it's memory thread, story thread. Invisible, but unmistakably there, like the echo of a dream you can't shake. It tugs gently, asking you to keep walking, keep wondering. So you do. You close your eyes and follow it. And just like that, you're somewhere else. An artist's loft, probably in Berlin, or Brooklyn, or Hanoi. The location doesn't matter. The air smells like linseed oil and ambition. Canvases lean against every wall, most of them abstract. Color storms, fractured patterns, raw emotion rendered in brushstrokes that feel like screams softened by time. In the corner, a woman is painting her fifth version of Arachne, each one different. In this one, Arachne has no face, just eyes. All eyes, watching from every inch of her body. You ask the artist why. She doesn't pause, just smears charcoal across the canvas and says, "Because truth never blinks." You leave her to it. The thread tugs again. Now you're in a school auditorium. A production of The Myth of Arachne is underway, staged by 7th graders. The set is charmingly crooked. The costumes are mostly made from recycled Halloween capes and pillowcases. But the energy? Electric. The girl playing Arachne stands center stage, her arms stretched like loom beams. Her voice trembles, but it holds. "I will not lie to flatter you," she says to the student dressed as Athena, whose helmet keeps slipping sideways. "I will show the world as it is." The audience fidgets, unsure whether this is still pretend. And you think they're not just learning mythology, they're learning permission. You step backstage. A web has formed in the rigging above the curtain. No one dares clean it up. It's good luck, they say. Of course it is. You follow the thread further, into a quiet home in a city under curfew. The lights are low, the voices are hushed. A mother is reading to her child from a hand-copied book. A banned one. You don't recognize the language, but you know the cadence. The way she traces the lines with her finger. The way the child stares wide-eyed, mouthing along. It's Arachne again. In this version, she never transforms. She wins. Not with violence, not with magic, just with her art, her clarity. And the gods? They kneel. You blink. The mother has stopped reading. She looks toward the door. Footsteps in the hall. You vanish before she does. The thread moves on. To a refugee camp. To a prison cell. To a whisper passed through cracked lips in a hospital bed. The stories keep finding new looms. And Arachne? She keeps spinning. But she's no longer alone. You're on a rooftop now. Modern city, neon buzz, satellite dishes like inverted moons. A teenager is stringing yarn between metal poles, creating a geometric pattern against the skyline. From above, it looks like a web, but he doesn't call it that. He calls it a signal. A message to anyone who feels tangled, trapped, twisted out of shape. You descend and ask him what it says. He shrugs. Whatever they need it to. The thread pulses. You nod. Far below, someone stops, looks up, smiles. That's enough. Time shifts again. You're in a place that isn't real, but is made from pieces that are a stairwell here, a train platform there, an alley with just the right graffiti scrawl. In the sky, a constellation blinks into shape. 8 points, a curve of silk, Arachne's new home, written not in stars, but in connections, in networks, in memory. You pass a museum of digital art. Inside, a virtual tapestry hangs suspended in midair. It changes constantly. New panels added by anonymous artists every day. One shows a girl weaving with wires instead of threads. Another shows a spider hacking a database. Yet another, just 2 hands reaching across a chasm, connected by one strand of red. You step closer and notice a glitch. For a second, the whole tapestry flashes with Arachne's face. Just her eyes, watching, calm, unblinking. And then it's gone. But you saw it. You continue. Now you're in a desert. Endless, quiet, still. But the sand isn't smooth. It's etched with lines, delicate geometric patterns, like crop circles, but infinitely more complex. They're web designs, not made by people, not made by machines, made by wind. You kneel and trace one spiral with your fingertip. You feel it tremble, and for a moment you swear the wind shifts, like it's watching you back. You whisper, "I see you," and the sand replies in silence. The sun sets. You rise. There's one place left to visit tonight, and it's not a temple, not a courtroom, not a classroom or a cave. It's the inside of your own head. That place where doubts echo louder than encouragement, where perfectionism picks fights with creativity, where the voice of Athena still lingers, wise, powerful, and just a little too sharp. But now, there's another voice, smaller, silkier. It doesn't demand, doesn't scold. It simply says, "Weave anyway." You sit down. You don't need a loom. You just need a start. A sentence, a sketch, a song, a plan, a moment of clarity pinned down before the wind blows it away. You begin, and somewhere Arachne nods. Not above you, not below you, but beside you. Because the truth is, she never needed a pedestal. She didn't want worship, just witness. You are the thread now, and the story is far from over. The world tilts gently under your feet now, not in danger, just in motion. Like a merry-go-round slowed to dream speed. You stand at the center of it, and all around you stories spin outward in invisible spirals. You don't need directions anymore. The thread leads you effortlessly, not as a leash, but as a lifeline. And tonight, it leads you into the past. Again, but not the grand, thundering past of marble columns and divine tempers. This past is quieter, personal, fragile. You arrive in a village where the roofs are thatched and the roads are more mud than stone. Somewhere in medieval Europe, maybe a Tuesday. The people here work with their hands, bakers, carpenters, midwives, spinners, and the weavers. They're legends. You find one hunched over a narrow loom in a cottage filled with smoke and sunlight. She's old but not brittle. Her hands are steady, her back is straight. She's working on a piece so fine you can barely see the pattern forming, only that it glows faintly where the thread catches the light. You ask her what she's weaving. She doesn't stop. Everything they tried to forget, she murmurs. And you realize this isn't just a tapestry. It's a record. And the room, it's a shrine. The shelves are filled with tiny things. Snippets of embroidery, torn scraps of letters, dried flowers, feathers, buttons, beads. Each one cataloged, loved. Not because they're valuable, but because they're evidence. You run your fingers along a frayed edge and feel it. Arachne. Not in person, but in principle. She's the blueprint, the whisper, the permission slip tucked into the seams of every woman who ever stitched truth into fabric when it wasn't safe to speak aloud. You step back into the street and the sky is overcast now. People pass you, heads down, eyes tired. But then a girl catches your gaze. She's carrying a basket of dyed yarn. One skein slips loose, trailing behind her like a comet tail. She stops, turns, catches it in midair. She winks at you. And just before she disappears around the corner, she calls out, "Don't let them cut the thread." You won't. You cross time again. Renaissance Florence. A noblewoman sits in a marble courtyard, quietly removing the decorative gold threads from a tapestry in progress. She replaces them with red. Bold, unapologetic. She's not supposed to. You ask why she's risking it. "I want them to see the blood," she says simply. You wonder if the finished tapestry will survive. It doesn't matter. The act is already stitched into history. Thread is funny that way. It's delicate but defiant, like memory, like myth. You wander into a convent now, cool stone, soft prayers. A nun is illuminating a manuscript. Most of it is saints and scripture. But in the margin, just above an angel's wing, she's drawn something new. A spider, tiny, perfect. You point to it, ask her if it's a mistake. She smiles. God made her too. You want to hug her. Instead, you follow the scent of ink and beeswax deeper into the halls. The thread pulls again. To the 18th century. To a ballroom. To a woman whose gown has taken 6 months to complete. Every layer hand-sewn by seamstresses who never get credit. She twirls, and the hem flashes gold. You duck backstage. There they are. 5 women, eyes bloodshot, fingers blistered, laughing quietly as they pack up needles and thread. One of them pulls a tiny silk square from her pocket. Embroidered in the corner, a spider mid-leap. They share a look. They don't say her name. They don't have to. In another corner of the world, a man is teaching his daughter to mend her own coat. There's power in knowing how to repair, he says, not just clothes. He doesn't know Arachne's story, but he's threading the same truth. Back in your present, you walk into a streetwear shop tucked between 2 fast food joints. It's small, black walls, neon signs. But inside, a wall of patches, intricate, weird, wonderful patches. You spot one immediately. It's Arachne, except she's got a hoodie, sneakers, headphones. Her legs splay out like graffiti. The caption stitched below reads, "Spin loud. You buy 3, because why not?" You go home. It's late. The streets are empty but not silent. A train hums in the distance. A dog barks once. And above it all, between 2 power lines, you see it. A web. It stretches wide, impossibly delicate, a lace bridge across the sky. And in its center, Nothing. No spider. Just the echo of one. The idea of one. And suddenly you realize that's enough. You don't always need the myth to show up with glowing eyes and divine fury. Sometimes it just needs to exist. To perch in the corner and witness. To wait. To thread the gaps between stories. You step into your room, kick off your shoes, sit down. Your laptop is open. Your pen is nearby. Your loom, whatever it may be, is ready. And there, in the corner of your desk lamp, a spider waits. She's small, plain, unremarkable. But she spins anyway. And now so do you. Because the truth once woven can never fully be torn. Because memory, once stitched, leaves a pattern behind. Because Arachne, once changed, became something even the gods couldn't undo. And she is still spinning. Everywhere. Always. Especially in you. You wake to the hollow ring of the dinner bell. Twice for third class, as always. The corridor smells like coal dust and boiled greens. You rub your eyes, swing your legs down from the bunk, and join the slow-moving tide of passengers heading toward the dining saloon. By now, you know the rhythm of this place. The same dishes cycle in and out. Soup, stew, bread, pudding. Soup again, sometimes fish, sometimes beef, always cabbage. But the predictability isn't dull. It's oddly comforting, like a clock that always ticks, even in the middle of the ocean. Tonight's meal? Rice soup again. You're not really here for the soup, though. You're here for her. She sits at the corner table, hands folded neatly, not eating. She never does, just watches. You've heard the whispers. That's her, Arachne's ghost. The other passengers avoid her like an open flame. Not because she's frightening, but because she unsettles something primal in them. The feeling that some people see too much, or carry too much, or might, if pressed, spin you into a story you didn't consent to. You sit across from her. Her eyes flick toward you, sharp and dark. Not unkind, but ancient. You don't speak, neither does she. Instead, she places something on the table between you. A scrap of fabric, no bigger than your palm. It's embroidered in blood-red thread. 8 tiny lines, crossing and reconnecting. A web. Then silently she pushes it toward you. You take it. And just like that, you're somewhere else. A museum exhibit. Clean, bright, controlled. Women in mythology, the plaque reads. There's a sculpture of Athena, tall and noble. Medusa, coiled and fierce. Persephone, half lit by summer, half frozen by the underworld. And in the corner, a display for Arachne. Just a simple loom. No spider, no girl, no text. You approach the security guard and ask why. He shrugs. We had a statue once. Someone kept wrapping it in yarn. Red thread all over, every night. You smile. So what happened? He leans in, lowers his voice. We left the loom, let them finish what they started. In the next room, you find it. A new tapestry, half woven. The edges ragged, the image incomplete. But you see enough. Athena, standing not above Arachne but beside her, looms facing each other, threads crossing midair like two ideas finally daring to meet. And above them, a spider, suspended, still, watching. You reach out, fingers trembling, and lay your palm on the frame. You feel warmth. Not magic, not myth, just memory passed through hands over centuries. Now you're in a library, the kind that smells like yellowed pages and floor polish. A child is curled in an armchair, reading a graphic novel titled The Spinner, Arachne Reborn. You peek over her shoulder. It's futuristic, cyberpunk. Arachne is a hacker now, living in a neon-lit city, spinning webs of code across a corrupt system. Her avatar? A human face spliced with 8 eyes and a loom strapped like a backpack. It shouldn't work, but it does. The child looks up at you. She's cool, she says. She's not scared of anything. You ask if she knows the original myth. She shrugs. They tried to punish her, but she just kept going. That's the version they remember now. Not the warning, the perseverance. Outside the library, streetlights hum. The web is everywhere again. This time in power lines, crosswalk patterns, digital maps, subway roads. Threads spun wide across a modern world. Invisible unless you squint. You squint, and there she is. A woman drawing chalk lines on the pavement. Circles, spirals. Geometric spider webs filled with names. Names of women, Artists, whistleblowers, scientists, poets, some famous, some forgotten, all part of the web. A child stops, asks what she's doing. She replies, making sure they're not forgotten. You kneel beside her, add a name of your own. A teacher who changed your life, a friend who wove joy from sadness, a mother who sowed strength into silence. The chalk squeaks, the wind picks up, but the names stay. You keep walking, this time into a protest. Crowds, signs, chants, chaos, but look closer. Thread again, literally. Red yarn connecting wrists, woven into jackets, stitched into flags. A silent tribute. One woman carries a banner shaped like a spider web. In the center, stitched in black, truth has 8 legs. And you get it now. Arachne was never about arrogance. She was about accuracy. She didn't lie. She revealed. And that was her sin and her salvation. You retreat from the noise. Back to stillness. Back to the loom. You sit before it. Pick up the shuttle. You don't need divine permission. You never did. You begin weaving your version, slowly, carefully. Your thread is imperfect, frayed in places, but it holds. You add moments you remember, and ones you want to, and ones you fear. And soon the cloth stretches wide, a tapestry of everything you've seen, everything you carry. Behind you, footsteps. Someone joins you, then another, each bringing their own thread, their own story. Soon the loom is crowded, but it holds, because this is no longer one girl's punishment. It's all of ours, and none of it. It's the truth, strung tight and shimmering in moonlight, not to trap, but to hold, to remember, to spin forward. It's quiet now, not the kind of quiet that comes from absence, but the kind born from attention. The kind that settles over a crowd when a violinist lifts her bow, the hush before meaning. You're still at the loom, but it's no longer a solitary seat. The room has changed. It's vast, endless, lit not by torches or lamps or LEDs, but by the threads themselves. They glow gently, softly like the light from distant stars. Some are red, some gold, some so pale they look like breath caught midair. And each thread is taut with story. You glance to your right. A painter is there now, adding pigment to silk, not brush to canvas. Her colors don't just decorate, they narrate. Next to her, a programmer feeds lines of code into an interface that maps patterns across global networks. Each keystroke a knot in the web. Farther down, a little girl ties friendship bracelets. She doesn't know what she's part of yet, but one day she will. And there, at the far end, almost invisible, spins a spider. Small, patient, watching. She doesn't direct, she doesn't command, she doesn't need to. Her presence is reminder enough. You begin to walk the perimeter. The tapestry stretches in every direction. No borders, no edge, just layers. Layers of grief, of joy, of rage and resistance, and radiant, mundane beauty. You recognize some of the scenes now. A baker kneading bread into braids that echo the shape of webs. A seamstress hiding protest slogans in the lining of coats. A student using their final essay to explain why truth matters more than grades. A son holding his father's hand and saying, "It's okay to be afraid." And somewhere, quietly stitched in a corner, your own face. Midweave. You didn't put it there. Someone else did. They saw you. They included you. That's how the web grows. You pass another cluster of weavers. They don't look like artists. One is a janitor, one is a nurse, one is a street magician, but their hands move with purpose. They know what they're adding. You pause beside them, ask what they're weaving. One answers without looking up. Testimony. Another, reparation. The third, possibility. You nod. You keep walking. At the center of it all is a circle of empty looms, blank, unused, waiting. For those who haven't yet dared. For those still finding their voice. For those told their hands weren't meant to create. You step into the circle, lay your fingers on one. The wood is warm. And from above, faint but unmistakable, you hear the whisper of thread being drawn. You look up. A spider descends. But this one is different. She wears no crown, no curse, no symbolism. She's just herself. A creature doing what she's always done. Spinning, building, balancing weight and air and need with the intuition of a godless engineer. You reach out a hand, not to catch her, not to stop her, but just to feel the breeze she leaves in her wake. She doesn't flee, she hovers. And then, in a gesture as old as patience, she anchors a single thread to the edge of your loom. It trembles, You hear it speak, not in words, but in memory. You sit again, and now you don't just weave for yourself. You weave for the silent, the scared, the censored, the erased. You weave for the ones who didn't get to finish their story, and for the ones who were never allowed to start. The thread tightens, the tapestry stretches, and Arachne, she doesn't interrupt. She observes, she protects, she remembers. At some point, someone sets a cup of tea beside you. Steam rises like silk, a small comfort woven into the moment. You sip, breathe, keep going. Across the room, someone adds a single word in bright green thread: begin. Another follows with resist, and another rest, and another rewrite. It's not just a web anymore. It's a language. And you, yes, you are now fluent. You run out of thread briefly, but then someone hands you more. Not because they have plenty, but because you asked. And that's the new rule here. The only rule. We share the thread, always. Outside this great loom room, the world hums on. Horns honk, birds scream, children cry. It's chaotic, but you're not afraid anymore. Because you know now what Arachne knew before the gods got nervous. Truth spun carefully, held together with community, doesn't tangle. It connects. You touch one last thread before you leave. It's marked with a name you don't recognize, but that doesn't matter. It's part of the pattern. So are you. So is everyone who ever dared to speak honestly, even if their voice shook. So is every hand that ever bled making something beautiful. So is every spider that ever hung quietly in a corner and waited for the light to hit just right. You stand. You bow not to the gods, to the web. And then, without ceremony, you disappear back into your day. But the thread, it stays looped around your finger. Soft, strong, sacred. The world feels heavier now, not in a burdensome way, but in the way a weighted blanket presses comfort into your bones. You carry the thread with you. It's looped through your coat pocket, tucked in your collar, hidden in the seams of your shoes. No one else sees it, but it pulls you gently through the noise. You're walking city streets, a place that pulses with life. Wires overhead, streetcars rumbling, voices overlapping in every language imaginable. A spider could spin for years and never catch all these threads. But still, she'd try. You stop at a corner cafe, sit, order something warm. You're not in a rush. You watch people go by, headphones in, shoulders hunched, eyes tired. But here and there, you see it. A patch on a backpack shaped like a web. A barista with a spider tattoo coiled around their wrist. A girl scribbling in her journal, the words barely visible, but you catch one line: I'm still spinning, even when no one sees me. That's Arachne, in coffee foam, in graffiti, in silence. The web expands even when you're not watching. You get up, walk, into a side street, narrow and old, where ivy climbs windows and laundry stretches above your head like festive bunting. Here, an older woman is mending a torn sleeve outside her doorway. You smile, she nods. What are you fixing, you ask? She holds up the shirt. What they call ruined, she says, but I call not done yet. You offer to help, she laughs and hands you a needle. As you stitch beside her, she hums, a tune you've never heard. Or maybe you have, maybe it's been in the threads all along. When the shirt is whole again, she thanks you, tucks a spare spool of thread into your pocket without a word. You leave it there. You continue. The wind picks up. Leaves blow in lazy spirals across a park path. You pause to watch them swirl. And in that stillness, you hear it. The sound of weaving, not literal, but familiar. You glance up, and there, on a swing set, a teenager in a hoodie is knitting. Fast, furious, each movement like punctuation. You approach but don't interrupt. When they pause to take a breath, you nod toward the yarn. What's it for? They smirk, a protest blanket. You tilt your head. What's that? They hold up a square. In the center, a spider with a crown. Around it the words, spin, even if it burns their hands to touch it. They don't wait for your approval, just keep knitting. You nod. You walk. And you begin to notice a pattern, not just in what people make, but what they choose to keep. A scrap of lace tucked into a wallet. A buttonhole stitched by hand on an otherwise factory-made coat. A tattoo in the shape of a loom hidden beneath the sleeve of a corporate blazer. These aren't accidents. They're breadcrumbs. Signs of Arachne's quiet revolution. The art of showing up in a world that doesn't always want you to. You cross into a school campus. Students sprawled on lawns. One is reading. The book cover shows a spider perched on a digital wireframe globe. You ask what it's about. It's fiction, they say, but it feels like prophecy. And maybe that's what myths were always meant to be. You keep moving. Into a hospital now. The waiting room is too bright, too quiet. The kind of silence that comes not from calm, but from caution. A nurse walks by with a threadbare teddy bear in her hand. She hands it gently to a child. The child doesn't smile, not yet, but they hold it close. And stitched to Langbibak, a tiny spider hugging a heart. Who made it? No one knows. But someone did, and it mattered. You leave the hospital. Your steps take you through rain now. Light, silver rain that patterns the pavement with soft dots. Your coat soaks through. The thread at your wrist darkens, but holds. You duck into a bookstore for cover. Inside, the shelves feel like walls you want to lean against. You browse instinctively. Your fingers pause at a spine labeled Myths Retold by the Silenced. You pull it down, flip through. The stories aren't just rewritten, they're respun, retangled, given new life. Arachne's tale is the first, and this time it ends not with transformation, but reunion. Athena returns, not to punish, but to ask, "What have you made in my absence?" And Arachne answers, "Something you can't unmake." You put the book back. You've made your own version now. You step outside, the rain has stopped, and every web on signs on fences, in tree branches, now glistens. You sit on a bench. Across from you, a child watches a spider rebuild a broken strand. They don't move, don't blink, just watch. You lean forward and say, "You like spiders?" They nod. "Why?" The child shrugs. "They fix things." Yes, they do. Night falls slowly. The lights in the city blink on one by one. Windows glow, streets hum. And in every corner, tucked where no one's supposed to notice, threads glint. Not because they're waiting to trap, but because they're waiting to be seen. And you, yes, you see them now, clearly, finally. You rise. You return to your room, to your desk, to your tools, whatever they are. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel alone. You pick up the thread again, because some stories aren't just remembered. They're carried. And Arachne's, it walks beside you now. 8 legs, 1,000 hands, infinite strands. And every one of them still spinning. You're walking a spiral staircase now, down, down, down. Not a descent into darkness, but into depth. The kind of depth where quiet things live, where stories root, grow, tangle around each other. The steps creak, dust rises, the walls are stone, etched faintly with thread-like lines, some accidental, some intentional. You run your hand along the grooves. They're not cracks, they're carvings. Each one is a story. You pause to trace one of them. A girl kneeling beside a loom. Above her, a spider dangles. But this time, the spider is handing her the thread. Not taking it, not watching her fail, just offering. That changes everything. You reach the bottom of the stairs. There's a door, no handle. Just silk stretched across it, layer upon layer, thick as drapery, soft as breath. You touch it. It opens. You're inside the chamber of unfinished work. It's quiet, softer than silence, like a held breath stretched across centuries. And the room? It's enormous. Looms everywhere. Half-woven tapestries hang from every wall. Some frayed, some cut mid-story, some stained, scorched, shredded. Each one a tale paused. By time, by fear, by force. A woman's journal never published. A child's painting never finished. A song hummed into a pillow and never sung aloud again. You walk through the chamber slowly, carefully. One tapestry catches your eye. It's embroidered with protest signs, stitched from torn denim, hospital scrubs, paper receipts. At the bottom, a line of red thread trails onto the floor. You follow it. It leads to a quiet corner where a single loom sits in shadow. You recognize it. It's yours. You sit down. The cloth is unfinished, but familiar. There, your first attempt at expression. Messy, brave. There, a memory of being silenced. There, a moment you almost gave up. But there too, a knot. Tight, bold. The point where you kept going. You pick up the thread again. Your fingers remember. They don't hesitate. You start to weave, not to impress, not to immortalize, but to continue, because continuation is defiance. And defiance doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just stitches one more line and dares to remain. You're not alone. The room fills behind you, not with people, with presence, echoes. The woman who embroidered lullabies into war banners. The boy who carved truth into hidden corners of video games. The grandmother who sewed her dreams into wedding gowns. And Arachne. You don't see her, but you feel her. Not above, beside. You pause to breathe. The tapestry hums. You whisper, "Is it enough?" The room replies, not with sound, but with stillness. Stillness that says, "It always was." You rise. The tapestry doesn't end. It waits. You walk to the center of the chamber. There's a column there, smooth stone, wrapped in decades of thread. Every strand tied by someone who came through this room and dared to begin. You find a gap. You knot yours in. No fanfare, no audience. Just commitment. And then, a breeze. But you're underground. So where? You look up. The ceiling is gone. Or maybe it never existed. Above you, scan, open, wide, dotted with stars. But those stars, they're not just burning gas. They're knots of light, spaced evenly, delicately. Constellations shaped like looms, webs, hands, hearts, and one, just one of a girl. Not perfect, but powerful, weaving, always weaving. You step out of the chamber and onto a hilltop. Grass beneath your feet, air in your lungs, a thread trailing behind you like a comet's tail. You're in the world again, but changed. Every building you pass, you look up for a web. And every time you find one, not always literal. Sometimes it's graffiti, lines curved in spirals. Sometimes it's a poem taped to a lamppost. Sometimes it's chalk drawing that says, "You're not broken, you're just still weaving." You add your own quietly. The gods blinked. I didn't. You feel her smile. Arachne, not a ghost. Not a warning. A sister. A thread you've carried longer than you knew. You hear a voice behind you, maybe hers, maybe your own. It says, "Keep going." So you do. You cross a bridge. Beneath it, a spider hangs. And above it, a kite with a web-shaped tail dances against the stars. Both held aloft by wind. Both spinning towards something new. The world spins quietly around you now, and you're moving through it like a needle through cloth. No hurry, no doubt, just forward. The thread remains looped around your wrist, but now it stretches behind you too. A long, steady line. A trail of becoming. You're in a garden. Not mythic, not divine, just a backyard somewhere. Wild grass, overgrown rosemary. A plastic flamingo tipped on its side. Someone's grandmother lives here, maybe still does. Or maybe you just slipped into a memory of someone else's past. At the edge of the garden is a small shed. You open it. It's filled with spools, thousands. Not silk, not gold. Ordinary thread, cotton wool fishing line. Tangled, faded, perfect. You run your hand over one labeled belonging. Another, rage. Another, regret. And one near the back, wound impossibly fine. Hope, fraying. You take it gently. Slip it into your pocket. Behind you, something stirs. You turn, and for a moment, in the center of the shed's ceiling, you see her. A spider. Arachne? Maybe. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She just drops one thread down and anchors it to your shoulder. You walk out with it trailing behind you. Back into the garden. The thread catches on rosemary, swings past the flamingo's wing, and latches gently onto a fence post. A stitch in the ordinary, a note in the margin. And now you're moving again. Again, this time through a place built entirely of voices. Not brick, not wood, just voices. Whispers, laughs, cracks. Each one threads through the air, invisible but thick. You hear them all. I was told it wouldn't matter. I didn't do it for them. I spun because I couldn't not. You realize this is the web of unheard stories. Not because they lacked volume, but because no one wanted to hear. You sit for a moment, add your own. I kept going. The web accepts it without judgment. A breeze picks up. You're in a subway car now, underground again. You hold onto the pole, feel the worn metal beneath your palm. Across from you, someone's crocheting. Not a scarf, not a blanket, just shapes, spirals, knots. You raise an eyebrow. They smile and say, I don't know what it is yet. I just know I have to finish it. That's enough. You exit at the next stop and climb the stairs back to the surface. It's night again. The streets are mostly empty, but the lights are soft. You glance at the window of a tailor shop, long closed. Inside, a mannequin wears a dress covered in stitched phrases. I wasn't made for silence. They told me to sit, so I spun a throne. Thread is louder than stone. The dress has no price tag. It's not for sale. It's a statement. You nod. You keep walking. You pass a girl, spray painting a mural across a brick wall. She's almost done, just adding a final thread of gold paint connecting two hands across a chasm. One human, one spider. You ask what it means. She doesn't look at you, just says, "It means you can be cursed and still be holy." The thread in your pocket warms. You move on to a poetry slam in an abandoned cathedral. The mic stand is crooked. The audience sits on blankets in church pews. Someone takes the stage. They don't say their name, just clear their throat and begin. Athena tore the cloth, but Arachne kept the thread. She didn't beg. She bled. And from her blood came beauty. 8-legged, 100-eyed, never blinking. Applause. Not thunderous, but honest. Someone hands you a zine on the way out. It's titled, "Spin Anyway." You tuck it into your coat. Later, you're walking a bridge. Beneath, the water moves slowly, like honey. Above, a web glints between two lampposts. It wasn't there earlier. Or maybe you just weren't ready to see it. At the center, a spider. Spinning. Still. You stare. She doesn't stop. So you don't either. You pull the zine out, open to a random page. A quote reads, "The web is not a trap, it is a map." And beneath that, start with what you have. Thread, breath, memory. You take out the red thread again. Tie it around the railing. Let the wind tug at the end. It doesn't come undone. You turn around, back into the city, into the ordinary. But now you know, every time you make something, say something, refuse to unravel, you're adding to the same tapestry, the one Arachne began, the one too vast for gods to destroy, the one that holds the stories they tried to silence. You don't need a loom. You are the loom, and the thread keeps passing through you, so quietly, so clearly, so defiantly. You're not walking anymore, you're gliding, not through air or water, but through meaning, through memory, through layers of silk so fine you don't even feel them brushing your skin. The world doesn't look different, exactly, but it feels more stitched together than before, as though the edges of things no longer come apart so easily, as though you could reach out and tug on any moment and feel the whole world ripple in reply. You find yourself in a classroom, empty. Chalk dust still clings to the board. You got chalk on your board, half-erased equations and one sentence scrawled in the corner. Truth doesn't need permission. You sit in the back row, look around. There's a notebook left behind on the desk in front of you. Its pages are filled with sketches of webs. Every page, a different version, circular, chaotic, layered, delicate, dense. And each one has a single word written in the center. Resist, repair, reveal, remember. You close the notebook gently as if not to wake it, because now you're in a different kind of classroom, a living one. A woman stands in front of a crowd in a public square, her voice strong, shaking slightly from the sheer size of her truth. "This," she says, holding up a tapestry, "was made by the hands of 100 women, some free, some not, some loud, some very, very quiet. But all of them dared to add their thread. The tapestry is huge, a city block wide. It shows nothing and everything. Fragments of lives, a mother's eye, a broken chain, a kitchen table, a fist, a loom, a girl. And in the corner, small but unmistakable, a spider. Just one, watching. The crowd doesn't cheer. They listen, because that's what this moment asks for. Not applause, but witness. Later, as the tapestry is rolled back up, a child tugs at your coat. "Was she real?" they ask. You blink. "Who?" The child frowns. "The spider girl." You kneel. You say she's as real as the thread you're standing on. They look down. There's no visible thread, but they don't question it. They nod, satisfied. Children know. You wander again, down an alley with cracked pavement, where someone's painted tiny webs on each square of concrete. You follow them like stepping stones. At the end of the alley, a metal door. You push it open. You're inside a workshop. Music hums low. The kind of music that wraps around your ribs and calms your pulse. There are people bent over machines, laptops, needles, soldering irons. They're not building weapons, they're building memory. You ask what this place is. One woman smiles. It's a reweaving station. You raise an eyebrow. She holds up a tangled necklace. Broken heirloom. Belonged to my mother's mother. We're restoring it. You ask if it's valuable. She shrugs. Not to them, but to us? Absolutely. You nod. You get it now. Some stories break, but threads can be picked up, knot by knot. And so they are. You move on to a beach at night. Moonlight reflects off the water in soft silver, like silk rolling endlessly toward the horizon. Someone has built a web between two driftwood poles, not with thread, with seaweed, with shells, with hair. It flutters gently in the wind. An offering. To what? To who? Maybe just to the act of making. Because spinning is sacred, no matter the medium. You sit in the sand. Let it chill your ankles. You draw a web in the grains beside you. Someone joins you. They don't speak. They just draw beside you. Another web. Another voice. Another witness. When you both stand, the tide is already creeping in, washing it away. But that doesn't matter. You both walk away knowing you've made something. You wake up. In your own bed. Morning. Normal. The room is familiar. Your breath fogs the window slightly. But on the sill, a thread. Just one. Red. Trailing out through the open crack in the pane, across the bricks, into the world. You tug it gently. It tugs back. You smile. Because you understand now, the web doesn't end. Not in myths. Not in memories. Not in moments too small for history books. Arachne was never about defeat. She was about durability. They turned her into something small and quiet and creeping. So she made small, quiet, creeping things beautiful. They cursed her with repetition. So she made repetition resonant. They hoped she'd vanish. So she spun herself into everything. And now, she is not gone. She is not sorry. She is not afraid. She is watching, weaving, waiting for someone like you to say, I see you. And more importantly, I see me in you. Because this isn't a bedtime story. It's a call to craft, a whisper through fiber, a tap on the shoulder of every person told they shouldn't, can't, won't. Arachne answers with silk. And so will you. There's a stillness to this final place, not empty, not silent, but full. Like the pause between movements in a symphony, where the last note is still vibrating in the air. You're standing on a high cliff now, the sky above you a wash of soft colors, dusky blue, silver, the faintest lavender. It's not day. It's not night. It's the hour in between. A golden thread hangs from the clouds, anchored to a stake driven gently into the earth beside you. You touch it. It hums. And with that, the last path opens. It's not paved, not marked. It's made entirely of thread, spun by millions of hands, worn soft by feet like yours. You take a step. And as you walk, the web beneath you shifts, not like a trap, not like a net, but like memory, flexing to make space for one more story. Yours. You pass through a field stitched with lanterns. Each one flickers a different color. You pause beside one that glows violet. Inside, a tapestry, still weaving itself. It shows a young girl refusing to lie, even when her voice shakes. It shows a spider resting above her doorframe, quiet and constant. It shows her writing late into the night, one sentence at a time, pulling the words from someplace older than language. You smile. The lantern pulses once, then dims. You keep moving. The thread path rises now, over a ravine filled with broken looms and tangled nets. Below, a river of thread flows gently, pulling shreds of old myths downstream, some faded, some angry, all dissolving into softness. You cross a bridge made entirely of red string. At the center stands a weaver. Her face is veiled. Her hands are not. She beckons. You hesitate, then offer your thread. She accepts it without a word, adds it to the tapestry at her feet. The moment your thread touches hers, the pattern changes. Not dramatically, just enough. A new line, a new voice, a new truth. You feel it settle in your bones. You were always part of this, even when you didn't know, even when you were still unraveling. You walk again. You walk again, this time through a forest. The trees here are tall, ancient, and each one is wrapped in webs. Not dusty, not broken, but bright. intentional. Between every two trunks, a story spans. Some glisten with laughter. Some are stitched from grief so sharp you can feel it in your fingertips. And some are unfinished. You kneel beside one. Add a single line. It's not long, but it lands. That's what matters. You move on. As the thread path begins to slope downward, you realize you're returning. Not to where you began, but to where you are. The city hums just ahead, lights like fireflies. You step off the path and back onto the ground. The thread winds gently around your ankle, then releases. Not gone, just quiet. You exhale. Look up. The sky is dark now, but not empty. Because in the constellations, you finally see it clearly. A spider, no longer feared, no longer cursed, just present. Her legs span galaxies. Her threads pulse with the weight of 1,000 stitched truths. You lie down in the grass, and she doesn't descend. She doesn't need to. She's already within you. So you rest, not in surrender, but in arrival. The story has spun. The tapestry is vast. The thread is strong. And now you can sleep. And so here you are, lying still, wrapped not in sheets, but in stories. Threads gently loop around your breath. The air slows. The hum quiets. Your hands no longer twitch with the need to weave. They've done enough. Outside your window, a single spider web sways gently in the breeze, catching a sliver of moonlight just right. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be held. You are like that too, not finished, not flawless, but held. Somewhere, a tapestry still spins. You are in it, not at the center, but not at the edge either. Woven in tightly, lovingly, with intention. You've walked through gardens and factories, libraries and alleys. You've heard Arachne's story told in threads and whispered in chalk, sung under breath and danced in rebellion. And now you carry it not on your shoulders, but in your chest. Woven through muscle and bone like a lining sewn into the inside of a favorite coat. Let your limbs sink deeper now. Let the weight of the web cradle you. No gods to fear, no looms to race, no tapestries to prove. Only you, breathing, resting, spinning softly in your sleep. Because the world may demand more tomorrow, but tonight, you've already woven enough.